Hello everyone, my name is Emily, and Valentine's Day is upon us. That being said, I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to talk about my favorite literary couples. Now, in my time of reading books, I have come across a lot of literary couples. But there are only a select few who are really memorable to me, whose dynamics really stand out. These aren't always ideal couples, these aren't always even healthy couples, but there's always something about their relationship dynamic that makes them so interesting to read. So I racked my brain for couples that I have read and loved over the years, and I've come up with a list of 7. So in no particular order, here is my list of favorite literary couples. So of course, first on my list is Kaz and Inej from Six of Crows. So Kaz and Inej come together as two criminals. Inej is recruited into Kaz's gang and they perform crime for hire. She was a former acrobat who was kidnapped and forced into prostitution. He is still deeply traumatized by his brother's death when they both fell on hard times. These two characters bond over their shared traumas and eventually develop feelings for each other. And I really loved watching this process take place. I love how each of them knows how to bring out the softness in the other person. And they have such great chemistry, and you can just feel the intensity of their emotions, even if they don't even physically touch that often in the books. Inej has problems with bodily contact because of her experiences with sexual assault. Kaz has a real phobia of touching other people because of the memories of being with his dead brother's body. So throughout the duology, their opportunities for physical contact are very rare. So when they do come into contact with each other, it's that much more intense and impactful. I loved seeing them perform acts of love for each other throughout the story. I really love their romantic arc. It's just really fulfilling. Next on my list is a real obvious one, and that's Lizzie and Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. It sounds like such a cliche, but they are a time-honored couple for a reason. These two are intellectual equals, and before they met, they had such trouble finding people who are at their level, but they each have these individual flaws that keep them from seeing each other clearly when they meet, and they each have to take their heads out of their respective asses and be humbled before they can get together. And in the end, Darcy does this amazing service for Lizzie's family, and he doesn't even tell her because he doesn't even expect anything from her. And that's what a real nice guy does. They do nice things for someone without expecting any recompense in return. And this was a time when class factored a lot into who you married. And their story is also just about two people who decide that having an intellectual equal for a partner is more important than just any old secure marriage. So while my favorite Darcy is Colin Firth from the BBC adaptation from the 90s, I think generally in terms of filmmaking, I like the 2005 one with Keira Knightley. It's just got better cinematography, it's much more fluid, it's got better music, and it also just doesn't feel as rigid as the one with Colin Firth. That one always feels like it's trying to get all the dialogue from the original novel in, but it's still kind of stiff feeling. But also, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Something about that film makes it so fun to watch. Sam Riley as Darcy is so good. Sam Riley as Darcy is just really underrated. I really like him in this role, but people don't. I don't get it. My next couple might be a little bit controversial. That is Lestat and Louis from Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles. These two are a couple, don't even deny it. They even adopt a kid to complete their family. Do I think this is a healthy couple? Absolutely not. But do I think they have an amazing dynamic? Yes. I love how these two have these personalities that complement each other. Their dynamic is so fascinating. Lestat just approaches vampire life with such gusto, whereas Louis is so much more moody and introspective. They're just these two individuals coming to grips with the psychological implications of being immortal killers. They fight with each other, but then they come back together over a long period of time, and how their relationship reacts to a lot of new tensions is very real to how any relationship starts to buckle and strain under new burdens over time. But underneath it all, they just have amazing intense feelings for each other. Next on my list is Marco and Celia from the Night Circus. So Marco and Celia are these two magicians who've been pitted against each other in this magical contest by their respective masters. And in the meantime, they both work at the wildly popular Night Circus. What I really love about this couple is how magic becomes their love language over time. One of my favorite passages from this book describes how these two magicians start to build rooms in this tent in response else to the other person. So he builds a room with some magical atmosphere in it, and then she builds a room with some other magic in it, like some snow or ice. It's almost like this dialogue, but in shows of magic. And of course, with two magical people, of course, their language is magic. So yeah, this is a beautiful story, and it wouldn't be the same without this amazing couple. So next on my list is Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala from the Star Wars universe. So you're probably saying, Emily, this isn't a literary couple, they're from a film series. Well, I'll have you know that these films each have a novelization that go with them, and they have featured in several comic books in the Star Wars universe as well. So they are a literary couple, deal with it. But truly the novelizations for each of the Star Wars films are very good. I'm starting to appreciate the Star Wars prequels a lot more, in part because of these novels. These books really have a way of adding meat to a lot of elements that maybe weren't executed very well in the films, and one of these things is the relationship between Anakin and Padme. They are a star-crossed couple, if I ever saw one. He is the most powerful Force user ever in the universe, and she is one of the most accomplished female politicians. And granted, it's a little bit creepy when they meet and he's 9 and she's 14, but when he becomes a Jedi and they come back together again, I really do think their relationship is beautiful. And Padme falls in love with Anakin for a reason. He starts out as this heroic, very powerful person, but he's just been ground down over time by these space monks. He's gaslighted by people around him, the people who are in charge of his education, and he's alienated from his peers. And Padme became a leader at a very young age and pretty much has been a career politician her entire life. But when they're with each other, they can be vulnerable and open. They really are each other's only refuge from all this messiness around them. She really is all he has, so he's willing to even switch ideologies in order to save her life. But then the tragedy is that in wanting to save her so much, he actually brings about her demise. And that is something he has to live with for decades and decades until he meets his son again. If you'll allow me to circle back to the films for a moment, I really love the way Hayden Christensen plays Anakin in these films. He does the perfect portrayal of a person who has all these intense feelings going on, but has been emotionally repressed over the years and doesn't know how to deal with it. I do admit that a lot of the romantic dialogue isn't really well written, but Hayden Christensen's nonverbal work is just amazing. He knows how to inject this character with such intensity. And I just love the way he looks at her, like, oh, find you a guy who looks at you like that. Next up is Jamie Fraser and Claire Randall from Outlander. So where do I even begin with Jamie and Claire? He is a Highlander in the last days of the Highlander clans, and she is a World War II nurse who has been time traveled back into the 1720s. But man, this couple has weathered many, many storms. Basically, his sense of honor and her intelligence just come together perfectly, and he just really readily accepts her for who she is. And they go through so much. They go through war and a long separation and a lot of internal conflict, but somehow they just are able to make it through and resolve things. They just have a really unbreakable bond. That is just something so enviable in any couple. And I think that's the thing that I admire most, how they manage to resolve conflicts between them, because those are the real tests of any relationship, going through really tough periods. Lastly, I want to talk about Joe and Professor Bear from Little Women. Now, this couple was really done dirty in the new 2019 film adaptation. You can see my thoughts about this couple and how the film treated them in my Little Women video, which I will link. So Jo is a lot of people's favorite character from Little Women. She calls herself a literary spinster. She doesn't really expect to marry, and she wants a career as a writer. But then she meets Professor Bear, who is this amazing mix of intellect and kindness. He's quite a bit older than her, but she doesn't really mind because she admires him so much. And he's also the figure who encourages Jo to write authentically and not just to the crowd. And eventually, when they come together, he helps her manifest her purpose in life, which is to teach and write. He compliments Jo's really fiery personality, and he's her intellectual equal. It really is a beautiful relationship. So Louisa May Alcott actually based the professor on several figures in her life. One of them was actually Henry Thoreau, the American poet and philosopher, and also Louisa May Alcott's first love. But they were also intellectual matches, and he was also quite a bit older than her. And given that Jo is Louisa May Alcott's self-insert, I think it's quite silly to presume that she wouldn't want love, even if she doesn't necessarily subscribe to marriage as an idea. So yeah, I wanted to appreciate this couple because I don't think enough people do. So that's it for my favorite literary couples. I hope you have an amazing Valentine's Day, whether you be single or partnered up. Let me know down below what your favorite literary couples are. Subscribe if you like my content and like this video. You can also follow me on Goodreads, Twitter, and Instagram, and I will see you in my next video.